Hey guys, and welcome to Conversations in the Living Room, where we lift the curtain on our blueprint to love, relationships, and pleasure. We are back in 2025.
And his name is Drew.
Oh,
in case you were wondering.
In case you're wondering, my name is Drew, and this is my husband.
T. Hi.
And if this is the first time you're seeing both of our faces, remember to subscribe to this channel. Check out Instagram. You can follow me at It's Andrew Dong, and you can follow him on You Won't Be Following Him. So, no, go on.
No, you can follow me on T's journey. And I think that's where we show more of, like, I guess our frequent life. Because one thing we've realized that we are dedicating more time for this year is YouTube. However, in the last video we recorded, we're trying to find the balance between how much we share in terms of details and how much we keep to ourselves. And I think taking the first month of January just to sort of be grounded was very important.
Yeah, we know we're going to be feeding you guys this year, so we took the whole of January off.
Yes.
Just to rest, reset, recoup.
Yeah.
And then once we open the floodgates, which we are going to be keeping them open all of 2025. So yes, we are back and we're here to stay. But yes, check out Instagrams. That's where you can get to see us on the day-to-day.
And TikTok, T and Drew.
Yes, T and Drew, where it all started. So today we have been thinking about money, and as you would have seen in our last video where I shared an update about me and how I quit my 6-figure tech role, we've been thinking a lot about money because money is very important in relationships, very important.
Yeah.
So we've just been thinking about it, and we wanted to open up a conversation. It's likely to be the first of many conversations that we are going to have around money and the impact it has on relationships.
Yeah.
Whether relationships succeed, whether they fail, whether you are passive aggressive in your relationship, whether you are transparent. Like, there's so many things that go into money and relationships, which we want to unpack.
Firstly, we want to cover our journey with money in terms of like how it's impacted our relationship and also how it's impacted us separately, but how it also impacted us as a couple. And then we talk about societal pressures of what people expect from a same-sex relationship and their views around money, which in some cases are not necessarily true or applies to us, but we'll get into all of that. And I think let's start from the beginning. So from an individual, I guess, lens, what was your experience growing up with money in your family?
Okay, so I grew up poor, just to be honest. My family moved to this country in the 80s, and they were asylum seekers, essentially fleeing Uganda due to war. And for the first, I believe, few years of my mum and dad being in the UK, they lived in London, and they actually lived in West London, right close to Notting Hill.
Yeah.
But then when I was about 2 years old, so I was born in 1991, my parents moved out to Stevenage, which is like this small suburb outside of London. And what I can remember from my childhood is I remember my mum and dad worked very hard. I remember that they worked multiple jobs. My mum worked as a cleaner and my dad worked as an accountant, but he also had to take on additional roles as a cleaner just to make ends meet. I remember there not always being food in the cupboard or in the fridge, and I remember mum and dad did the best that they absolutely could, but we just didn't always have the money that we needed in order to provide the essentials that we needed. I remember there being challenges with like keeping on electricity, for instance, and we used the card meter, so we would use pay as you go. I don't know if anyone knows what the expenses have pay as you go, but I remember there would be some nights where the electricity would go off and it would be after all of the stores closed, so we wouldn't even be able to top up the electricity. So we'd end up getting out candles and like singing around and like just waiting out till the morning.
Oh wow, singing around. That's beautiful.
It was cute.
Look at
You know, it is. But yeah, I just remember being poor for the majority of my childhood, which definitely had a huge impact on how I thought about money. Like, I didn't think that money was something that was easily accumulated by people that looked like me or that people who came from my background. I think that was definitely a clear message because we weren't surrounded by many black people or many immigrants within the town that we lived in. And whenever we did meet other immigrants, a lot of them were poor too. So that definitely informed how I thought about money. I didn't think that money naturally came to people that came from my background. I also seeing my parents work so hard and earn relatively little also made me think that you had to work incredibly hard for money, work twice as hard, 3 times as hard. That was definitely a belief that I had. And then also I just remember my parents, well, my dad in particular, really valued traditional work. So what that meant was being an accountant, being an engineer, being a doctor, and being a lawyer. And he saw these careers as vehicles for you to escape poverty, which to a degree that was the case for him, because he became an accountant, and that it went right the way when he was in Uganda, and it allowed him to flee the war in Uganda and move his family to the UK. So that was my third belief, that you needed a traditional job in order to earn money. So those beliefs definitely carried through to me growing up, and I think they kind of unconsciously informed the decisions that I took. Like, I remember I used to dance, I used to love dancing. I remember like putting dancing on the back burner because I was like, this isn't going to allow me to earn the money that I want to earn in order to have a sustainable life. I decided to study physics. I wanted to go into accounting like my dad. I wanted a very traditional career because I thought that would bring money. And also, when I did get money, I remember just blowing money. Like, even when I would earn, like, I think it was maybe £200 a month when I was working Asda when I was in sixth form, I would buy like a jacket that was like £150, and then I would essentially be broke for the rest of the month. And I think that was this idea that money did not attach itself to people who came from my background. So I would blow the money that I did earn because it felt natural for me to not have money. So I would sabotage the money I did have. I wouldn't save, even though I could have saved back then. I remember I was earning pretty well. I was earning pretty more than a lot of the students that I was working with, that I was at school with, but I just would not save. And that kind of behavior carried on right up until after university. And we'll get into that and how it ended up changing. But yeah, I think that's been my experience of money from a young age. Yeah.
It's so interesting because I think there's similarities in our story in terms of our background or our upbringing with money. In terms of my family, like I said, when we first came to this country, we were asylum seekers also. Well, I was an asylum seeker, like my whole family were pretty much illegal immigrants in this country to start with. So there were odd jobs, yes, against the law that they had to do to sort of make ends meet. In terms of the working as cleaners, my dad, interestingly enough, had a job in a factory. My dad is such a hardworking man. And then my mom also was working, not as a cleaner actually, I believe she was working as a care worker, and also in like a kitchen. So she was serving food to people. And one thing I always found interesting about them is that we never had money, but they never felt like there was lack in terms of like when it came to feeding, when it came to things we had in our home. I think the essentials we had, but luxury in terms of holidays or in terms of going out for fancy dinners and things like that, that was never something we really experienced. But in terms of the essentials, in terms of heating, light, food, I never lacked for those. And I think that was one thing I have to say I was very blessed with growing up. But a lot of it, I think my issue with money stemmed from the fear of immigration. So a lot of the big chunks of money my parents had was spent on immigration. So to me, it felt like we had money, but the money was never ours because we had to put it somewhere else. And then growing up, that sort of informed my beliefs on money, where it's like, you always have to save money for a rainy day. So it's like, even though the money is there, it looks good, but in your head, it's like, it's not yours. Just save it because you never know what could happen when you need loads of money to sort of fix that situation. And I think that is what sort of informed my way of life pretty much until when I got comfortable with Andrew. And even I think till this day to some extent, I still have that very much always save first. And it was a journey between both of us because now you've heard both of our stories. Imagine there's polar opposites where you have somebody who is like, when money comes in, get that money out because like, it's not something I'm used to. I don't believe it's money that should be for me, so let it go out. Whereas me, it's like, that money should be saved, hold on to it because you never know when you need it. So that was an interesting journey before we then sort of
came together. Yeah, and I remember like after university, I had been in debt for maybe about 4 years.
Before we even get to that, I think let's even lay the foundations. How was our relationship when you were fending for somebody who was an asylum seeker? How was that for you? Because bearing in mind where you have come from, and you were in some ways making money to establish yourself, when you first met me, what gave you that understanding that, okay, do you know what, I'm willing to make that financial sacrifice? Because to be in a place where you're not only fending for yourself, you're fending for somebody else. What made you take that bet?
I think we spoke about this actually in the video that we did around like how we dealt with asylum seeking, the impact it had on our relationship. I think for me, it was necessary to invest that money to maintain the relationship. So it was just a no-brainer, I guess. Like, for me, like, I know we've gone into more detail on this in that video, but I just remember feeling that like this was a necessary expense in order for me to have this relationship. I don't know, it just felt pretty easy. Like, and I was used to not having money for myself anyway.
Right.
So like that money to invest in the relationship and then being left with net zero at the end of it wasn't really an issue for me because I was used to not having money.
Okay.
You pay for what you get and I had to pay for that booty child.
Lol.
But yeah.
Reset. Talk to us about your debt story, how you were poor and had nothing again. And I had to rescue you.
Oh, that's another thing. That's another belief I had about money, which ties into this actually. I also think, and I don't know where this came from. Actually, I do. This came from my parents.
Oh.
Shout out to my parents, love y'all. There was also this thing about keeping up appearances with money.
Oh.
Even if you didn't have enough, you would never accept help from anyone else because you didn't want to look like a charity case.
Interesting.
And so this ties in very nicely to the dynamic that we had in the sense that you didn't know until years later, because Tosin wasn't able to provide financially. When we were at university and we were first dating, I would have to essentially like pay for groceries or whatever else that we did. But I never showed Tosin the extent at which I was sacrificing in order to support us. And that was a mindset I got from my parents, that you just never made yourself look like you needed help.
Yeah.
And you never talk about it, you would just take it on as a burden. So for instance, there were times where I would, like the money I did have, I'd use that to go out and get groceries and time it round about when Tosin was coming. So when he'd come over, it would look like I had food, etc. And then as soon as he would go, I would eat less or wouldn't eat as lavishly or whatever until the next time he came, which was usually around 2 weeks. But he didn't know this until like years later that I was making these sacrifices. And that's because I wanted to save face. Like I wanted to have this appearance, this false appearance that I was fine, I was okay. And I definitely think that came down to my upbringing. And it also came down to the reason why I got into debt, because I think because I was so committed to keeping up false appearances, I would spend money that I didn't have in order to keep up those appearances. And what that looked like was getting a credit card, a student credit card. It looked like taking out credit cards. I obviously had student debt, which people who become students get, but it was that student credit card that really messed me up. Who also remembers store cards? Store cards are real messy when they would target like 16 to 18 year olds.
Oh yeah.
Especially Topshop. Wow, that Topshop store card was a mess. It was big credit cards and it was overdrafts. So by the time I'd finished university, I think I was about 1.5k in overdrafts.
A lot of money at that time.
At that time in overdrafts and in credit card debt, which was a lot of money. And what I would do is every month when I get paid, because I got a pretty decent job after university, but what I would maybe get paid like 2.2, 2.5. Essentially that money would go into this hole and then it would take me to about zero and then I would go back into the hole. So I was living like that for about 4 years. No one would know, like it was just my own personal thing. Until I got a really good job in 2019 and I don't know what happened, but me and Tosin had a really serious conversation about finances because I think I wanted to move out at that time. So Tosin was like, okay, cool, let's put a plan together in order for us to like look at how you can financially be able to move out. And part of that was being really transparent about where I was financially and the debt that I held. And I was so uncomfortable, like so uncomfortable. This was the first time and I felt so much shame over the debt that I had over my head. And I remember it was a really difficult conversation. I was really defensive and Tosin helped me put together a plan, looked at the debt, and you did it in such a non-judgmental way. You looked at all of my, you might have been judging, but you didn't let me know you was judging. Looked at all of my finances and then put together like a sustainable plan, with the number one priority being to pay off my debt, because now I was earning a lot more than I'd ever earned in my whole life. It was possible to pay off this debt. And then 2, to move out, because I think it was left to me, and the mindset I had at that time, I would have prioritized moving out and still just continued on with this debt. And I think that was the first time my mindset around money completely changed, and I started to think about, okay, you earn whatever you earn, put the majority of it to saving, and only, like, I moved from spending probably 90% or 100% of my paycheck every month to only spending like 30% of my paycheck every month and saving or putting the other 70% towards different things. And that is a very privileged position to be in, of course, with the job that I had. But I learned so much from you in that conversation, and it's been pretty much the case since then, 2019.
No, I think I completely agree. I think that I had no judgment towards any debt you were bringing, because number one, like we talked about this already, when you found me, I had nothing to bring to the table in terms of financially. So even at this point where you had this debt, I knew for us to really enjoy the luxury that it is your new job, shout out to lockdown, because that also helped tremendously. Yeah. Like, I knew that the best way for us to enjoy the new access to money we had, I should say, was by paying this off. And then, by the grace of God, you paid off the debt, you paid off the business loan, you paid off your student loan. I was like, wait. I remember each time we paid off one thing, there was this big celebration for, like, we've done it. The next one, we've done it. Then the student loan, I think student loan was the icing on the cake, like that last payment. So I think for me, I just knew the investment wasn't in terms of like what we had then, it was the investment of what the future could be. So I knew you were ambitious, I knew that you had drive, I knew you had all of these things, and I knew that for you to enjoy every step of what you were going to get in future, this cloud had to be off your head. Yeah. The only downside to that, which he really helped me, was the fact that when we even got out of the cloud, I was still very scared to spend money.
Yeah.
I was still very scared to spend money.
What would you say was the turning point for you?
Turning point for me was our wedding. Turning point for me was our wedding, because when we were planning the wedding, first of all, we made the conscious decision. We do not want to buy a house, and I'm not saying that this is everybody's prerogative. This is not people's decision. We had more than enough. I think we told them the number for our wedding, right? 55,000.
Check out that video too.
Yeah. So we did a video where we broke down the budget of how much we spent on our wedding. 55,000. That is enough money for us to get a house. We made the conscious decision not to get a house, that we wanted to spend that on our wedding. And it's not something we ever hold regret to, because for once in my life, after saving money from both of us, I could spend it on something that brought me joy. Joy that I still have in my heart to this day when I look back on it. It was not spent on hospital bills. It was not spent on immigration. It was not spent on saving somebody. For the first time in my life, I could use the money I had to go and do something that we can both look back on and be like, this was the moment of joy, like pure joy. And I think that is what set us, almost like the catalyst for when we have money and when we save. It's like, okay, you have to have landmarks that give you joy. Of course, keep saving. Of course, we're still going to buy a house. Of course, we're still going to have all of that. But don't save all your money for a future. Right? Like, we'll have that future, but you never know what life brings.
Yeah.
So for us, in that moment, I was like, okay, change your mindset. And thank you for pushing me, because a lot of things in the wedding, if I had my way, he would not have had half of those things.
We would have been getting married, I don't know where. I don't want to say anywhere that would offend anyone.
No, but I think that the combination of both of our upbringings,
our money trauma, actually ended up being complementary to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really important in relationships. I think understanding where someone has strengths, or just uncovering what someone believes about money, because these things can be subconscious and they will drive. If you notice that your partner winces or isn't willing to purchase things or gets uncomfortable when you have conversations about money, it really is just about gently trying to understand where that is coming from. And it's usually driven by fear. And I think understanding what their fears are around money is really important to being able to create financial goals that align together and that you actually work together towards.
Yeah.
So I think really pay attention in yourself. How do you feel when you talk about money? How do you feel when you buy something? Is it like a rush of adrenaline or a hit of serotonin that makes you feel like, does it feel like an addiction? Does it feel like anxiety? Like, I think those things can really tell you what lies underneath.
Yeah.
And what those fears are. And once you name them, then you can start to do something about them.
Another key point is also projection. Because a big thing in our relationship was Andrew used to earn a lot more than me. I can say used to now because he ain't got no job. I'm keeping my man afloat. No, I'm joking. He used to earn a lot more than me. And I think one thing I always used to do, I think it frustrated him because I would always be projecting on him. It's like, every time you talk, you always talk about the money you bring to the table. You never said it once. Every time you talk, you put your money like, sometimes I feel less than because I don't bring enough money to the table. I don't bring this. He never put any.
I never said that. I couldn't even remember most of the, like, Tosin would be like, oh, I couldn't even remember the things I paid for in our relationship. Still to this day, I don't remember. It's just money that has to go. I have to pay for something.
And a lot of it was projection from my end because I felt less than in terms of not being able to bring as much financially into the relationship as he did. And because this is what I love about content creation, we'll get into that in a second. And for a very long period of time when we got back together in our relationship, he was earning 6 figures. I was earning probably less than half of what he was earning. And it kept on messing up with me where every time I would just be like, I'm not bringing enough, I feel less than, I'm not bringing enough, I feel less than. And then we'd have arguments about it where he never brought any issue to it, but I made an issue out of it. Until one day, I just thought to myself that, okay, rather than you complain of what you're not bringing, what access do you have to bring into the relationship? Like, okay, you have a job, what else can you do? Like, and that's where content creation, like, became something that could bring money. So we started posting online, we started posting for fun. Then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, no wait, people are doing it in a way that ties to brands. Why don't we try to this? Why don't we try to that? And that's how I was now able to sort of bring money from my 9 to 5 and then also convince my husband that, hold on, there is money you could make from social media. And that's how I was able to, still not up to six figures, but I was still able to add more into the relationship. And then it's like, okay, cool. We're working in tandem. Guys, find somebody who's ambitious. Find somebody who doesn't see you excelling and then puts their own sort of projections on you. Thankfully, he saw past that and kept on checking me like, yo, you're talking nonsense right now. Fix your shit and get your head together because I'm not using money over you. That's your issue. And through therapy, through everything, I worked on that. So it was good that you gave me the grace to work on it.
What other tips would you give to, maybe I'm going too far ahead, but I think this is really important. Like, what tips would you give to perhaps someone in a relationship who is earning less, who's dealing with insecurities? What tips would you give to that person based on your experience to help get over that?
Should you not be given the advice if we're talking about people earning less?
Wow. Oh, what? Just because I'm out of job because I want to rest after carrying this relationship on my back for 10 plus years?
No, but
financially.
I think I love this period where I'm able to make jokes like this because I think that...
Yeah, I feel fine, actually. This break that I'm taking... Anyway, let me not make it about me, but...
But to finish a sentence, I, in my heart, believe that this break is what you need to reach the next higher version of yourself that puts out what he loves rather than what he just needs to do to make money, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like this is the season where you pick and choose. I want to do this, I can do this, I can make money from it. I want to do this, I can do this. And you don't report to anybody because you have paid your dues in the career world. My God. That's a different
I sure have, child.
But yes, conversation around how do you manage feeling less
insecurities when you earn less.
I think everybody says this and it almost seems like an answer for everything, but communication. Do not let your pressures, your projections, your everything, your belief in yourself be what you push onto somebody else. If that is an insecurity, sit down with him and talk about it. Also, I know therapy is a luxury. I'm never going to turn around and say that, get therapy because it's going to fix you. If you can't afford it, please do get therapy because it allows you to communicate in ways that rather than you feeling like you're talking at somebody, you're talking with somebody, you're talking to somebody. And I feel like therapy is what allowed me to sit down with him, because I think we had that conversation where I told you that, okay, a big issue I find in this relationship is the fact that you make X amount of money. Sometimes I feel like almost less than in terms of what I bring to the table. And then I think you were even still shocked by it. Because if I remember this conversation vividly, he was shocked and was like, I've never noticed that. I never expect that from you.
Yeah, because I think for me it was like what you brought outside of that was so huge, especially like enabling me to manage my money better. I don't know if other people can relate to this, but a pattern in my life was always whenever I would earn more, I would spend more, which meant that like the surplus money I was earning essentially did little to like my lifestyle, improving my lifestyle. But it wasn't until you taught me like some money management principles, my lifestyle grew exponentially with the amount that I earned. And I don't think that would have been the case. I still would have had the same bad behavior, spent all the money that I earned that was extra.
Yeah.
But yeah, you brought that to the table. So I think that was invaluable.
I think you just reminded me of something though. Another thing is figure out what you can bring to the relationship rather than what you don't have. Because yes, he was earning these 6 figures and moving from one job to the other and building all his careers. But I was the one, interview prep, let's go. Job applications, you want to make this decision, have you negotiated the right amount of money? Because sometimes he can be so laser focused on getting something that he forgets to ask for more. And with me, it's like, okay, they might say they might want to give you, I don't know, X amount, but ask for this. Can they give you more bonus? Can they give you more shares? Can they give you more this? So your partner can be laser focused.
Yeah, you helped negotiate my first pay rise, remember?
Yeah.
Out of a performance cycle, it was out of cycle and they agreed it.
Yeah.
And that was so nerve-wracking too, because I was just like, I should just be grateful for having this job and being paid. Oh, that's not bullshit.
So very much that. Figure out ways you can add value to the relationship. It's difficult to fight that demon of insecurity, of lack. But if you can pour more into somebody and it brings more out of them, it only benefits both of you in the end. The greater heights he achieved in his professional career, I was eating good. So that was on that pivot.
And that's why they say like when you divorce someone, you split the money in half, because because it is really like what's yours is theirs, and like the support you have from your partner, if it's the right partner, can help you earn, can help you like when you come home and you have a business and you've been fighting to get that deal and someone has been your emotional support and they've been home taking care of the kids or taking care of the home or feeding you or cooking for you or being your therapist and being all these things, downright they have a right to that money that you've earned. It's not just about the person who's out there doing the work. Everyone's doing the work. So I think it's important to recognize your value outside that. In a healthy relationship.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so with our content and what we put out there, a lot of times the question it asked is, where do you guys get your money from? And interesting enough, I see it on a lot of gay couples content. Like,
yeah, where did they get their money from? Where did the circuit gays manage to pay for 5-star hotels, flying business class, going out, eating at the nicest restaurants? Yeah, I think that is definitely a valid question.
But also a stereotype.
Yeah, also a stereotype. Not all gays are rich. Like, let's start there.
Yeah.
Believe me, I know, child. I've been through my fair share of. Anyway, so I would say where we got our money is pretty simple. Like, we both work in tech. Everyone knows tech pays well. And through that, we've been able to earn stocks and then also save a substantial amount of money or a good amount of money, mainly during the lockdown. So that's where we get our money. We also get additional money through content creation, which pays at the moment about half of what we earn through tech, I would say, but we're planning to up that, obviously now out of that world. So that's where we get our money. I think I also want to talk about where that perception around gay people having money comes from. And I think a lot of it stems from the fact that a lot of the times, I think gay people do live quite independent lives. And we do, I don't know what the stats are, maybe we can insert them in, but I believe we tend to have families later, like kids, etc.
Yeah.
And with that means we have less financial dependence and therefore have more disposable income on average if compared to a heterosexual couple. And also, I think because there's not so much of a societal expectation that, say, the man in the relationship is supposed to foot the bill. And I know women are earning more than they've ever earned, I believe, in this day and age. But I think there is less of that pressure. Like, I felt less of pressure that, like, I have to foot the bill versus you, etc. I think that results in having more disposable income together as well, because there's not that expectation that one person has to foot the bill. And I also think, as a culture, gay men in particular tend to have more of a desire to flaunt their wealth and their lifestyle. I don't know where that comes from, but I think it's part of our culture. Like, if you look at ballroom culture, etc., the idea of flaunting and being a man as well is kind of interconnected in queer culture. So I think we're more likely to display our money in a way that's perhaps a bit more flashy as a status symbol too. And then also a big part of our culture is also traveling and partying, right? So I think those things in the Western world, play into the stereotype of gay men having more money. And also some of us dress well, child, some, not all. So I think that also plays into it. So yeah, I think that's where it comes from. But I don't think that it's the case that all gay men have money just by virtue of them being gay and being a man.
No, I think that the theory around starting our lives and families later is such a good sort of thought on this conversation, because I think it allows us almost within, I don't want to use the word youth, but within our 30s, within our this, to actually enjoy the money we've earned before we then begin that. And it's to say that a lot of gay people also are disconnected from their family.
Yes.
There's homelessness.
Yeah.
There is abuse. There's so many things that are thrown against us that we have to fight to be where we are. So that's why I feel like, in my experience, when I see gay people in the corporate world, I always find that they are the ones that are the most present, in terms of they want to make the most connections. They want to be known, like, know me, so that when things come up, I want to be first that you think about. So I think that we work hard.
Yeah.
This is like a generalization, but I'm standing by it, because I feel like we work hard, because when it comes to being black, we are not valued as a black man because we are a gay man. You know, they think less of us in that sense. And for us, it's like, no, the way you will respect us in one way or the other is the fact that we got money. So you will see us.
Yes, money buys a lot of status, which 100%. I remember when I came out to my parents, my dad, one of the ways he was able to accept me is because he saw Steve Jobs was a billionaire and was like, Steve Jobs, no, not Steve Jobs.
It was
the Apple guy.
Steve Jobs.
No, Steve Jobs ain't gay.
Wait. Tim Cook?
Yes, he saw Tim Cook being a billionaire and was like, oh, so my son can be okay. So I know that me being financially secure was one of the ways that I was able to stand in my queerness more unashamedly, or in a way that, like, you can't tell me nothing because you don't pay my bills. So yeah, I really resonate with that.
Status symbol plays a part. And I think that, unfortunately, it's not necessarily a good thing, but I think in some way it's a motivation.
Yeah.
So when you see gay couples, 9 out of 10 times, you see them traveling, you see them dressing good, you see them doing things that shows that, okay, love lives here, but money also lives here.
Yeah.
And I love that representation, because, it's positive, it's affirming for me. Back when we were dating, sounds so old.
10 years
ago. Bottom should get all the dinner dates paid for, and tops do this. I don't know if that's still a thing, but do you have any opinion on it, would you say?
Yeah, I think what we're talking about as well is like, how do societal expectations around gender norms play a role within homosexual relationships? Sexual? Anyway, how do they play a role in homosexual relationships? I think, I remember growing up when I was younger, and amongst my friends, I don't remember there being like a general feeling that a top should pay for a bottom's lifestyle. Someone who prefers the bottom. I don't remember that being a thing. If I'm being honest, I don't remember it being a thing amongst my friends, because I feel like we were all very like hyper independent and wanted to have our own money.
Oh no, but I don't mean our own friends. I mean, think more society.
Society.
Disbelief at that time.
At that time,
Oh.
I didn't
You
see
still
it.
didn't see it? Okay,
Only
fair.
because society for me was my gay friends. We were the gay society. So like they were a reflection of everything. I remember you would obviously have some boys who preferred to bottom, who were like getting paid for by sugar daddies and things like that. But it wasn't necessarily the aspiration for everyone, and it wasn't like the standard, I would say, model that I would see. Yeah, that was my experience.
Yeah. No, I think that from my experience, I felt like even though I didn't have the money at that time, a lot of the experience I had when it came to dating or going on dates, when we broke up, to clarify, there was this feeling, might have been projection, where I felt like I had to be the one who had to look financially to pay, because outside of our relationship, I was a top. So like, I would go out there and it's like, I had this pressure of like, okay, you have to foot the bill or you have to bring something to the table. Whereas
Did you feel age played a part in it? I would feel more so age was the one now. Yeah.
Age also played a part in it, but I feel like now, luckily enough, I don't necessarily see that being the conversation. I do see where men want to be feel more romanced in terms of dates, in terms of flowers, and in terms of gifts. But I don't know if sexual roles play a part in that, or it's more so based on they just want to feel loved. So I don't know if it's a big conversation now, but one thing I am happy to see though, men go on dates now. Men buy each other flowers.
You said that? I've been hearing that.
Wait, what are you hearing? I've seen people go on dates.
I've been seeing people online talking about how chivalry is dead, this, that, and this. But if you're seeing different, obviously there's the couples that we follow.
No, this is not even couples. I saw somebody ask his partner to be his boyfriend on a beautiful date.
Oh, that's bad.
Basically, there's positive representation out there of what it is to be in a modern day
dating. I love that.
Modern day gay dating world. Does that connect?
Yeah.
It does connect.
But let us know what you see as well.
Yeah.
Let us know like what observations you see on your side of the internet, what pressures you felt within your own relationships around money, and some of the roles that have been projected onto you or that you internally are projecting onto yourself. I think it's really important. But I definitely think age was the big one for me. Like if you were older, you expected to like foot the bill for someone younger, and you expected to be in like a sugar daddy sort of role.
Yeah.
But those things intersect with roles, sexuality, all these kind of things.
Yeah. So on the next episode, we're going to be talking about the current impact of how we manage our finances. Also with Drew leaving his job, how are we navigating that? And like, what does that look like for us now? So there's more to come around the conversation of finances. But one thing we always say to you guys, let us know in the comments, where do you want us to dive deeper into our conversations when we post on YouTube? And I love sort of the back and forth people have in the comment section, because it also encourage us to know what we need to talk about next in some ways.
Yes. Cool. So if you like this episode, subscribe to our channel.
Yeah.
Check out our Instagram if you want to stay in touch with us in real time and follow us on our everyday lives at It's Andrew Dong and at
T's Journey.
And at T and Drew on TikTok too. So that's all for today's conversation. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye.